you. Remember, if you enjoy this video, do me a favor and hit that like button. Think about getting in the comments section below and letting me know if you really enjoy what you see. Make sure you Hulk smash that subscribe button. If you feel like you're in a position to support the channel and help it grow, think about using the link in the description to sign up for my Patreon page, sign up for membership right here on YouTube, or pick up your very own JerkComic shirts like the ones you see on the screen. But now, let's get into it. Welcome back, boils and ghouls. So I'm trying to do more of these like flip through episodes, but I really don't have the camera set up, so I'm trying this new digital setup. Hopefully this works out well. Let me know what you guys think. Get in the comment section below and let me know, do you guys like these flip throughs? Do the digital ones work better? Does it look better when it's on my table? We're going to try a little bit something different with this one and do a little bit of a deep dive. This is called Marvel Shadows and Light. Now, this is volume 1, and it started in February of 1997, and it was a direct retort to Batman Black and White, which had started in December of 1996. This series did well enough that they actually ended up spinning it off into a second volume, and it was a 4-issue anthology series that was released quarterly that started the next year, I believe. And the first issue had stories by Ron Mars, Gene Ha, Brian Steelfreeze, Bernie Wrightson, Lynn Wein, and Steve Ditko in it. So this definitely, it did something, but I don't ever hear anyone talk about it. The reason we're talking about it on the channel tonight is because it has got a story by Michael Golden, who of course we've been deep diving. Now this cover is by Tony Daniels, and this is like 97, so he's still coming like super hot off of the Spawn Blood Feud miniseries in 1995. As well as his run on the regular Spawn series, which came like right after this. That being said, this cover is absolutely terrible. It is just a hideous, hideous cover. I am sorry, but it is. Not to trash, because I'm normally a big Tony Daniel fan. So we've got 4 stories in this. A Wolverine story, The Spoon Job, Dracula, Into the Tomb, Captain Marvel, which is either called Prisoners of the Red Ghost or Trio of Terror. I don't know which. We'll get to that in a second. And then Doctor Strange in Strange Reflections. That's the main one that I wanted to check out. But what's really cool, I mean, this series is, well, this is a one-shot, but the second volume apparently was really good. This issue has some awesome stuff. The Spoon Job is by John Paul Leon. Now, John Paul Leon wasn't always my cup of tea. He was heavily associated with a couple of books that just, I don't think he necessarily fit super well with. That being said, he passed away in, I believe, 2001. Extremely unfortunately. The guy is an insane talent. He is amazing. And Spoon Job is a wonderful example of what this guy is capable of. John Paul Leon majored in illustration at the New York School of Visual Arts, and he was studying under guys like Will Eisner, Walter Simonson, Jack Potter, and it was around this time when he was in school that he got his first ever job illustrating the Dark Horse miniseries RoboCop Prime Suspect in October of 1992, I think. His junior year, he was actually given the job as the inaugural artist on the DC Milestone ongoing Static series, which started in June of 1993. And like Walter Simonson agreed that this could basically be John Paul Leon's coursework for that semester. I mean, it's pretty impressive. If you look at this work, and Spoon Job is really early on in Jean Paul Leon's work with the Big Two, as far as I know. I really haven't seen a lot of stuff like prior to this. It is an amazing story. His Wolverine is killer. For a lot of years, I thought that Jean Paul Leon was really reliant on using photo reference, and that's not necessarily a bad thing. I really like Tim Bradstreet, for example, but I don't think that's the case. I just think that, like, Jean Paul Leon had this amazing ability to summon this, like, cross between reality and surrealism that totally messed my head up when I originally saw it way back in the day. He drew this miniseries, Logan, Path of the Warlord, and that was in like 1996 or so. And then he did, the art is great, but the further adventures of Cyclops and Phoenix, it's tied into the Ascani Sun stuff. It is absolutely awful and just didn't give Jean Paul Leon like room to shine for me. Then in 1999, he did Earth X with Alex Ross, and his art is not suited for that series. I've bagged on it in the past, and it's not Leon's art. I love his art. Look at this story. I mean, it is absolutely jaw-dropping. I don't know what else you want in a black and white Wolverine story. Like, he doesn't even suit up, and I didn't notice the first time that I read this series. Like, he doesn't suit up. The fights are amazing. Some of it is a little bit static. I think that if Marvel had given him an opportunity, it would have been really nice to see like a big, still would be at this point, unfortunately, you know, if we hadn't lost him, to see a big like 48, 64 page story of Wolverine by Jean Paul Leon, because this is really, really good stuff. Unfortunately, Earth X really kicked off. It spun off, and I mean, I think they did like 6 or 7 spin-off miniseries and stuff. It went on forever. I was not a huge fan. Now, he did a series called Winter World, and it's widely heralded as probably his best work. It's his best work in my opinion. And thankfully, Scott Dunbier being the like, I just love Scott. Like, Scott Dunbier is out there doing God's work. That's all I can say. Like, God bless Scott Dunbier. If he ever hears this, dude, I owe you a hug and a thank you. But he did a Zoop Kickstarter, and it was the first ever Kickstarter that I know of for a official artist's edition for the Winter World material by Jean Paul Leon. If you have never checked out Winter World, or you haven't seen that artist edition, I really, really recommend tracking it down. It is extremely expensive on the secondhand market. So, you know, if for anybody who missed that original Zoop campaign, I'm sorry. I wish I had a copy I could show off. Like, I've been watching for one for like 3 years. And if you guys are into artist editions and you don't want to miss out on stuff, make sure, and speaking of Scott Dunbier, he normally does not kickstart stuff, but he is doing the Jason Pearson body bag Kickstarter right now. So if you guys are into that stuff, make sure you go and back that book. Now we have this story, Into the Tomb, and Into the Tomb is, what this is doing in a I don't know how mainstream, but a mainstream Marvel publication, I do not know. Jose Ladronn is doing pencils, and that's super cool because he was usually an inker or a finisher on stuff for Marvel, even though he did do a lot of penciling work outside of Marvel. And James Felder wrote this story. I don't know a ton about James Felder. I know he started off as an editor, and he handled the letters pages on some of the early 90s ghostwriter and adjacent stories like Night Stalkers and those kind of stuff. And it makes sense that he would be doing a Blade story, considering he's working on all of this ghostwriter adjacent stuff. But Felder mostly did editorial work on Ghost Rider, actually. And he did do a few stories for series years later, sporadic scripts. But he did some stuff for Deadpool with Joe Casey in 1999. And then he seems to have just fallen off the face of the earth. I don't know exactly what happened, or I haven't read much of James Felder stuff. I do know that Ladronn is killer, and this does not look like a color or even a black and white book that Marvel was putting out in the 90s. I mean, Ladronn has done work for Inhumanoids and a ton of big Euro stuff. He's done stories for a ton of stories, at least several that I know of for Metal Hurlant, and he's even worked on some of the ankle material and other stuff with Jordowski. Now, Ladronn helped out on several issues of the 90s Cable solo series, including that first issue with John Romita Jr., and man, you can tell, they were a perfect fit. If you look at these big, crazy, blocky shapes, this is the kind of stuff that you were seeing, John Romita Jr. do on all of those X books in the 90s. And that's mostly where I remember Ladronn showing up doing, some sporadic penciling, but usually he was doing, inks and finishes over those kind of stuff. And, he looks like, I don't know if it's Ladronn or the inker on this story, though. They're channeling, Jack Kirby and, Buscema as best as they possibly can. And, if you look at some of the faces by, I think it might be Juan Velasco, because if you look at the inks, it's the inks that really are, trying to sell that Kirby, Buscema, spot black shading. And Juan Velasco worked on, all of Ladronn's issues of Cable, as well as a ton of other X-Men related books. He did some Avengers stuff a few years later, but he inked, I think, all of Ladronn's Marvel work, and he kind of followed him around for a year or two. And after he took off, after Ladronn left Marvel, Velasco stuck around. And as far as I know, as of 2020, I think the last thing I saw from him was 2022, 2023. So he's still basically around. He's doing inking on complete stories for Avengers. I know he did some pinup work, some gallery stuff. It's cool because it's these guys were outsiders and they really got brought in, and it's cool to know that they had it wasn't just a flash in the pan. Marvel gave them a shot, they liked what they did, and they really did kind of have a long-lasting career. I'm not saying it was 1,000,000 books, but it's a lot more than I would have expected from, Marvel giving these guys work. Going into this, I didn't expect that to be the case. That's for sure. Now, this Captain Marvel story, as you see, it's called Trio of Terror here. I don't know why it's called Prisoners of the Red Ghost in the Indicia, and then Trio of Terror here. No answers for you there. What I can tell you is that this is penciled and, like, as you can tell, mostly inked by a guy named Wilfred Santiago. And he goes basically just by Santiago. I don't know a ton of stuff where he's credited as Wilfred Santiago if you're trying to track down his stuff. And he doesn't have a ton of stuff out there, but he did go on to a lengthy run of, you guessed it, static, just like John Paul Leon did. It makes me wonder what the connection with this Marvel publication and Milestone was going on, because there is definitely a connection. I don't know if it was in editorial or in the art department or what. Santiago didn't do a lot of comic book work. I mean, you can tell by looking at this. This is not the kind of thing that you like crank out monthly, A, or B, I think anyone is necessarily even looking for in a monthly series. Like, he won a bunch of awards for this Michael Jordan painting that he did in 2014, which I could, personally care less about, but he made a lot of money off of it from what I can tell. And his only lengthy comic stint that I know of, to call it that, is on a series called Pop Life for Fantagraphics, which lasted all of 4 issues. He's done some single issues of stuff like Icon and Hardware, which, obviously other Milestone series. So that was when they were going on. And at the same time, he was doing some covers for Marvel. But like, he really, I mean, looking at this story, it's an amazing story. It really is fun to look at. Now, John Rossum wrote this series, and I personally know John Rossum because he worked on at least 4 or 5 issues of What If back in the day, and that is like my jam. He also worked on a ton of Milestone stuff that I remember, though. He did like 21, I think all 21 issues, including issue 0 of Zombie. And like, I know he handled all 16 issues of Cobalt as well. I don't know what the Milestone connection here is. There's one going on, though. John Rossum he was brought back. He was so popular and so well associated with a lot of that Milestone stuff that they actually brought him back in 2011 when they tried the original restart of Milestone to do Zombie. And he handled both that and the Static Shock ongoing series, along with, I think, writer Scott McDaniel. He left both series after only maybe 3 or 4 issues, though. And if I remember right, it basically just amounted to him not getting a lot of input, and there wasn't a lot of creative back and forth. That was like kind of something I heard a lot about that Milestone reboot, so it doesn't really surprise me. Rossum would like disappear for months or like a year or 2, but he'd always come back, and he seemed to always be working on books, but he would like disappear. And he's still around as of 2024 when I'm recording this, but he's been like on and off with, I think, Scooby-Doo for DC for like 5 years. In 2002, John Rossum put out a mini-series called Midnight Mass. And Midnight Mass went over pretty well, and they actually were asked to do a sequel, and there's a second miniseries called Midnight Mass, Here There Be Monsters, that was released a year later. I think it was in 2003 and went into 2004, but it might have been released in 2004. But Midnight Mass, like, it attracted a pretty good amount of attention. That's right around when everything is starting to get, movie executives and television executives, they are eyeing this stuff really hungrily at this point. And in 2009, it was officially announced that there was going to be a Midnight Mass television series following like years of negotiation that I think had started in like 2004. After 2 years of pre-development limbo and all kinds of stuff, they got scripts, all this pre-production stuff done, and Midnight Mass went the way of the dinosaur and never ended up happening. What's kind of funny, if you're a fan of Midnight Mass, is another little tie-in to Milestone for you. Rossum has said that the characters from Midnight Mass were actually originally going to be characters from the zombie run in the Milestone era, but that series ended up getting canned and never really happened. Now we're getting into the whole reason that we're looking at this issue. Strange Reflections by Michael Golden is widely heralded as like definitely one of his best works, and for good reason. Like I know that some of the writing in this can come off just like a tad bit preachy, but it really well represents Michael Golden, his views, and it is an extraordinary example of, like, Marvel never let him do what he really wanted to do. Just let him loose. And this is a, short story. They let him do whatever he wanted. John Beatty helped with inks. I know that John Beatty had not the best working relationship with Michael Golden in the past, but Al Milgrom, on the other hand, did. And Al Milgrom helped on the inks on this. I don't see a lot of the stuff that Michael Golden usually... I guess he never actually explicitly says what he didn't like about John Beatty's inking, but if you look at the way that Beatty handled Golden's pencils, as opposed to somebody like Al Milgrom, who Michael Golden did say is like the guy responsible, one of two guys responsible for, really teaching him how to ink and the value of a line and how to use spot blacks and just so much about the industry. Now, it is awesome to see Milgrom on this story because the art on this is absolutely surreal on one hand, because you're getting this crazy Doctor Strange fight that's going on, but on the other hand, you have this really, really expressive child. And one of the cool things about Michael Golden is, for me, his kids don't just look like tiny adults. A lot of people cannot draw children. That is not slamming on people. It's not fun. It's not easy, but his kids look like kids. And Michael Golden talks a lot. If you listen to interviews with him, anytime anybody brings it up about violence in media and the negative way that it can impact kids and basically everybody through a form of brainwashing, this is Michael Golden working that out on the page. This, you've got this surreal Doctor Strange fight that's happening, and the kid is even, as you can see, he's like watching X-Men on the television. Like, he's ingesting all of this violence and bizarre surrealism, and it's being juxtaposed against this absolutely, it is truly breathtaking art. I think it is really interesting this story is in black and white. Most people, that makes a story easier. However, as we talked about in the Michael Golden documentary, just like his inking, if you want to know more about his inking, check out the Michael Golden doc that I've been releasing, and you'll find out all about that. But, Michael Golden thinks in color, so working in black and white does not make things easier for him. It doesn't speed things up, and in a lot of cases, according to Michael Golden, working in black and white is more difficult for him. So it's really interesting this story is in black and white. I think it was probably just because he was given the chance to write and draw the story. He felt inspired at that given moment, as he said in interviews, and this is what we got. There's not an inordinate amount of Michael Golden material floating out around, and there's even less of it that really represents very well what I think made Golden so important and influential to, the industry as a whole. There are a lot of guys who didn't personally, I think, necessarily get along with Michael Golden on, a lot of levels, but there's not a lot of guys that will look at his art and denigrate it or poo-poo on it. The guy is a consummate storyteller. He is very stylistic, yet he retains this like gorgeous sense of reality. And this story is a wonderful encapsulation of, I think, the freedom that Michael Golden was and still maybe is seeking when he creates material. It's not necessarily the most visually appealing in the sense of a Marvel house style big 2-monthly book, but this is extraordinarily powerful storytelling with its sparse words. He's not being overly verbose. He's not choking his pages out. He knows how to handle pacing and storytelling and emotion, and it is a great example of what I think Michael Golden could have been capable of were circumstances different. I think I will stop rambling about this. I know I've probably been going on about this forever. I hope you all enjoyed this. If you did like this flip through, please get in the comments section below and let me know. Say, do more flip throughs, or if this is not your bag, if it's a waste of time, if you're like a million other channels are doing this is stupid, I don't like it. Get in the comments section and tell me. I want to produce material that you guys want to watch that I also enjoy. This digital format, I think, also will allow you guys to see the art much better. If it's off-putting, let me know and we can change stuff up. So I hope you all have enjoyed, maybe even learned something. If you did enjoy what you saw, make sure you hit that like button. Think about getting in the comment section below and letting me know if you really enjoyed what you saw. Make sure you Hulk smash that subscribe button. If you do that, make sure you ding the little notification bell so you never miss another video or premiere. Again, if you feel like you're in a position to help the channel grow, think about using the link in the description below to sign up for my Patreon page. For as little as $3 a month, you get access to tons of behind the scenes posts, updates, exclusive content like uncut interviews, and you can even get your name in the credits. If you want to support the channel, if Patreon is not your thing, have no fear. You can finally sign up for membership right here on YouTube. Just hit the little join button and make sure to select the tier and the perks that fit you best. If that's not enough, you can also make one-time donations towards specific goals or just tip the channel using the Ko-Fi link in the description below. And you can even pick up your very own JerkComic shirts like the ones you see on the screen now. As always, this video was brought to you by the Jerk Broadcasting Service, as well as generous grants from the Patreon, Ko-Fi, and YouTube members you see on the screen now. I seriously want to thank every single one of you that supports the channel and helps make these videos possible, with a super special thanks to my loyal Wednesday Warriors, Channel 10, Chasen, Clinton Salvini, and Mike Dolan. I really hope the quality and content is getting better, and I can't wait to see where this next year takes us with your continued support. Thank you again for helping this crazy dream of mine become a reality, and for sticking with me. I hope you all enjoyed, maybe even learned something, and as always, I really, truly, and honestly ask only two things. Keep it in those local shops, and keep reading comics.